Here to help us, the investment pros, Jim Frischling, president of NewOak Capital. Susan Solovic is back, the small business, and let's face it, they're also a large business expert, too. All right, you do have to put a certain amount down.
That's it, 10% down. We've had that conversation. 10% down.
So, well listen, we were talking 20% before, Jim, 10%. Who knows? They may go to 3% next year, but are you feeling it? Are you starting to see this?
No, we definitely are. I mean, the home confidence is at its highest level in 9 years, and it's actually kind of taking its lead from the consumer confidence, which is growing. I think wages and the stagnant wage growth is a little bit of a hindrance, but the fact is, I think home builder confidence is suggesting that whether you're going to buy a multifamily, a single family, the fact is people are feeling better about housing, and it trickles down to a lot of things.
And I will tell you that the multifamily permits were up substantially more than the single family, but this was the second best number I saw for single family homes in over the last year. Now, Jim mentioned the consumer. I'm going to ask you a couple of things here. So this brings us to our next real deal. When professional investors talk about being contrarian, going against the grain, it's usually a dig at you, the individual investors, but let's face it, it applies to institutions these days. For instance, two of the hottest stocks for the past couple of years, major household names, Apple and Microsoft, have less institutional ownership than their weighting in the S&P 500. And what that means for you is this is why regular ETFs, S&P ETFs, have been killing the so-called experts. So, Jim, let's talk about this. We talk about value a lot. Alibaba's trading at a forward PE of 37. The second name on that list that they're loading up on Liberty Media, a PE of 34. I mean, is this just trying to catch a quick trade? What is this telling you? And should our viewers be following this strategy?
And I think there are two unique stories. And on the Baba story, it was access to this IPO. I mean, Silver Lake was a fund that actually had a 2.5% stake pre-IPO and benefited tremendously. I looked at the list of hedge funds that were getting involved, and they took advantage of what was believed to be a very hot trade and a lot of momentum.
But a lot of these guys were buying it once it went public. Is there some sort of quid pro quo? You get a lot of initial public offering, but you have to buy some in the aftermarket?
That certainly does exist, and with the expectation that you're going to kind of, help take this thing higher. On the Liberty Media side, very complex story, and I think a lot of maybe retail investors stay away from it. There's going to be a spinoff. Spinoffs don't create value day one. In fact, it's a cost to day one. But the fact is, it's a complicated story that I think hedge funds are trying to distinguish themselves by saying we're not going to be in the Microsoft where we took our profits in Apple, but we're going to show you how we justify our fees and create value.
All right, so Matt,
now, you have C average students right now being told they can go to college and they can go for free.
They can be anything they want. I was a C average student. They can make something of themselves.
Let me bring Jim in this. Okay, Jim, I hear both sides. Should we take government money, $4.6 billion of Pell Grants? A lot of these kids are going to drop out. They're going to owe that money. They'll never get from underneath that. We talk about them all the time, their plight. Is there some way of determining or helping to determine, or at least nudging kids into a direction that's right for them? Because a lot of kids who are going to college don't want to go.
What I really liked about Mr. Lopez's comment was lifelong education. I don't think it's a question of college or no college. It is a question of the right education. And I think there's an attitude towards blue-collar workers, which in this country is really doing it a disservice. There are a huge demand for welders and plumbers and certain skill sets. The student loan market is out of control, but we're not too late to fix it. Okay, it is the fastest-growing consumer debt market, second to nothing by far. And there are programs that actually there are strategies, consolidating debt among financial institutions that believe they can start bringing this debt in and lowering payments. But we have to stop the waste.
Although I will say that I think one of the things, if we get government out of this, then the prices won't go up. We can actually get the tamp down because it's runaway because the colleges get the money for free.
This is a trend that's going to continue to move forward, and they're the leader in this. They have a lot of great partnerships as well. So, I mean, I think long-term, if you put a little bit in here, it will be much higher.
Have you ever seen a picture of one of their cars?
It is like it looks like my Vespa with a roof on it.
that right there might be quasi-legitimate. Listen, if this was China like 20 years ago, I'd be like, listen, that's huge, go from a bicycle to that, but maybe not now.
I thought the earnings report actually was positive, and I think people are underestimating. Well, I think you don't underestimate when China gets behind something, whatever initiative they do, when the government gets behind it. I think you're on the wrong side if you're going to bet against these guys because the subsidies, the buying power will be there.
Yeah, well, listen. People saying they're just following in the footsteps of everyone that came before them. I got to tell you something. Oracle, right? Larry Ellison, going through Bill Gates' garbage. I mean, doing whatever it takes. I mean, some might think that's reckless, Jim, but Some others are saying that's the guy I want to put my money with. That's the company I want to invest in.
I get it, but I do think nice guys don't have to lose. And of all those qualities, the over-solicitude is something I can live with. My father tells me that if your assets take the elevator home at night, you better treat your people right. And he didn't actually make that rhyme. I did that. But the fact is, I believe if you're going to be over-compassionate, if you're going to value your employees' trust, loyalty, I don't mind failing on that one.
I think there's a difference between being overly compassionate and caring too much what other people think.
Solved by the taxi
guy
cab
should
unions.
Be
This
fired. I mean,
fine. Let him be fired.
Let me go to Jim, because I got to tell you, earlier today on Twitter, Ashton Kutcher said this was legitimate stuff. You can go after journalists, and he likes Uber. I think he's a backer.
He's a backer.
Matt talked about the $18 billion valuation. They might be doing something right, but I got to tell you something. It is scorched earth. They are leaving a bad reputation. And what I think it hurts them ultimately, if there's a legitimate alternative, like Lyft or someone, that people think is just a friendlier company, it could actually hurt them ultimately.
Yeah, I think they do incredibly well because they're the cool and innovative company. And when stuff like this happens, now they kind of look like an adolescent bully. And the fact is, you're right. If there's a competitor and someone can choose, I think and someone says, I'd rather work with the nicer company than the bully. They're definitely doing good things, but again, cool and innovative is not what you think of when you talk about Uber. Now you're thinking of the driver that bullied the cancer patient. Now you're thinking of this guy that's trying to go after a journalist. That ain't cool.
Well,
and how about all the different programs they've had in the communities when they come in and they sit there and they offer
20
free
years to
drives?
build a reputation, you can lose it in 5 seconds.
$1 million
that's the
to go after Sarah Lacey's kids and her information.
Find somebody that can be competitive. Like
that's not right.
And their barrier to entry. I mean, look, all the taxi companies are coming up with their apps now.
Yeah.
You've got Lyft. I mean, I'm not sure that
I think they have a technological advantage so far, to be quite frank. But the economic activity was amazing. Those wages climbed to 53 grams by 1913, or to put it in proper perspective, 315%. So business is not Frankenstein's monster, but an extension of the intelligence of the free will that God has given all of us, from which we've all been blessed. So, Jim, what do you think about all of this?
No, I'm a firm believer in modern capitalism. In fact, I subscribe to Milton Friedman's views on enlightenment and self-interest. Everyone's motivated by their self-interest. And that doesn't mean that one self-interest is in conflict with another person's, but that is what motivates them. And while modern capitalism may not be perfect, there is no better system. No government has ever produced more goods, better companies, more value than the private sector.
But someone may say,
But it's only growing in the next couple of years, earnings 12%. I want to see a little bit more gusto in there, a little bit more growth, but I will throw you a bone.
Thank you.
If it closes above 35, technically it's a breakout. I don't care what they say. It's going to break out.
Yeah, and there's a pretty fair amount of shorts on this one. What do you think, Jim?
Look, I think the $1 billion buyback, I think people are, I know you don't want to talk about buybacks.
I love buybacks.
I think it's going to help the price of the stock. My only concern was the fierce competition that's coming, that is Samsung. And as Samsung, as their handheld devices is slow, having issues, they're going to have to focus on the semiconductor space, and that's a big time competitor.
It's interesting, though. Samsung 2 days ago, and it didn't get a lot of press, moved 500 engineers out of the phone business into Internet of Things. So I think there's grappling in what they want to be when they grow up. Apple clearly won that battle.
They've had to work to get there. So, yes, they deserve to be recognized for that. But when the ticket prices start going up so high that families can't go to enjoy the games anymore, then that
that's a business decision. I mean, at some point, they'll cry uncle. I've seen sketches of stadiums that were all just suites. And I don't know if we'll ever get to that. I don't know if we'll get there.
Corporations are the only ones who can afford
all the leagues are actually saying you can watch the game at home from your living room. And
that's where the money comes from.
Because they're going to get up the TV revenues, and they're going to actually sell the suites and the luxury box seats to the companies.
Taking the focus off of
dogs,
sports for a second, I just want to say, I think this sort of speaks to the power of negotiation. This is motivation for people who have certain salaries to go ahead and negotiate your worth. I think, we talk about this with women. I think everyone should just know their worth, negotiate to get those higher salaries.